Today is, of course, the D-Day. In conversation with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's A-team. Joining us now on ET Now is Secretary DEA as well as Secretary Banking. Sir, appreciate you both taking your time out as well as speaking with us today at ET Now. Mr. Bajaj, let me first come to you and ask you about the nominal GDP projection, something that I asked the Finance Minister as well. The budget is pegging the nominal GDP at 14.4%, but the economic survey says that we will grow at 15.4%, the highest nominal GDP that we're likely to see since independence. Why are the budget's nominal GDP numbers a little more tempered than the economic survey?
I think we were always blamed for the fact that we were always over-ambitious, something that we could never achieve. And secondly, as the finance minister said, and said it very rightly, that team works independently, so we also have a check on each other. So I would say that we are very close to each other, and I hope he's right and I'm wrong.
Let me also ask you, sir, and a lot of people are also asking this, the budget estimating, of course, the nominal GDP at 14.4%, but what is the, assumption that you're making for the real GDP deflator, and what kind of inflation numbers would you be pegging in? Because a lot of people say because the budget is giving such a big push towards infrastructure projects and, of course, a big stimulus for the economy, it is likely to have an inflationary impact as well.
I think the very fact that we are spending this money that we are borrowing from the market on infrastructure should not have an impact on inflation as much as you are mentioning. Nevertheless, we expect that the inflation should be somewhere 4 to 4.4. So the real GDP, as per our estimate, is 10%. But it could actually even be higher because we have increased our infrastructure spend this time by a mammoth 35%. And let me say that this is the highest that I have seen the figures. In 1 year it is higher, but I was also there in Ministry of Finance then. We pushed the money to Reserve Bank of India in the morning and got the money back from Reserve Bank of India in the evening on account of SBI, right. Some change of shares of SBI. So this is the highest capital infra increase that has ever happened in the budget.
How hopeful are you that this will actually help you to meet that 11.5% target that the IMF is talking about, or the 11% target that the economic survey is talking about, given the fact that, before COVID, India was growing at a meager 4.2%?
So basically, if you see that we have now shifted somewhat our gears in terms of trying to spend our money more purposefully, and we are actually doing infrastructure spend. That is one. The second thing is, if you look at the reforms that we are trying to bring in, the reforms actually had started long ago. Even during COVID, normally you would expect that we would only be concentrating on health. We did not do that. We started doing a lot of reforms, and the reforms are actually continuing. And some of the reforms that have come up, I don't have to repeat them. I'm sure your programs have already carried them. So these reforms, along with the proper, useful spend of money, I'm sure will give us a GDP growth of what we have estimated.
Well, since you're talking about reforms, let me shift to the banking secretary as well and ask, sir, a bad bank finally is something that we now are looking at, a national level ARC and an AMC that has been announced in the budget. But many people are questioning as to how helpful will this bad bank be in terms of resolution of stressed assets, because the RBI itself is pegging the stress in the system in terms of gross NPAs at close to 16.2% in the worst case scenario post-COVID.
You'll have to give me a little more time to explain the whole.
Yes, please.
See, let's begin with 2014-15 when the asset quality review started. So the stressed assets were recognized, recapitalization was done, which means capital was pumped into the banks, and the reforms agenda was also embarked upon. So the NPAs actually peaked in 2018 because the recognition almost got completed around that time. And comes December 20, if you look at the figures, they are all RBI figures, the NPA, the net NPA has come down below 3. So the balance sheet to a large extent has been cleaned. Why? The gap between the GNPA and NPA has widened because the provision coverage ratio has gone up to 85%. So which means the banks have provided for to a large extent. Now, what is this ARC, AMC going to do? Now, there are large number of legacy NPAs worth about more than 2 lakh crores, which are lying in the dumps. The banks are not able to realize that money. So even if you take the net book value, it will be more than 50-60,000 crores.
Right.
And the net asset value could be much more. So the resolution has not happened because you'll ask, why not the existing ARCs? The answer is that existing ARCs do not have the capacity to take over larger assets. So this ARC AMC is looking at those assets which are of the size of more than 500 crores.
Right.
That is one issue. The legacy NPAs will be addressed if it is transferred to a ARC. Basically, ARC is what? It is a warehousing entity where they purchase those assets at an X value, which is the net book value, and then thereafter it is a 15 and 85 cash deal and a securitized receipt kind of an arrangement. Thereafter, they transfer it to a AMC, where a professional set of people actually try to resolve the asset. So they bring in the liquidity, they operate the asset, they make sure that the value doesn't erode, and at the appropriate time will look for a potential buyer or to an AIF and they dispose it off. Get this money and then share it between the lenders. So that's the whole concept right now. Even what you said that the COVID-19 could play out, figures what RBI has projected, they have been also making corrections as we go along. So our assessment says that it may not be that severe. We have worked with the banks and tried to work out. And let me also tell you that as a result of the bad bank also, they will be earning some money out of sale of the assets. Secondly, they have been able to raise capital from the market to the extent of 51,000 crores.
And allow me to come in on that. While you're talking about bad banks, we want to understand from you, a bad bank, of course, needs autonomy. So will this bad bank have enough autonomy? The bankers up until now have the fear of 3 Cs. How will you ensure that the fear of 3 Cs has been put behind?
See, this ARC AMC will be fully promoted by the bankers and other investors. The government is not
government
coming into it. Correct. All the government could do at some point of time, give some kind of a support, maybe by way of a guarantee or something, so that for the interim, the comfort is available to the banks or the regulator if that is required. So that is all under examination. And now that this has been announced, I think very soon we will take it to its logical end of having this body and start operating.
I'd just like to come in and say it's a private entity. It's not a government entity.
Which is why I asked that it's not a government-backed entity.
Yes.
A 20,000 crore rupee additional outlay in terms of bank recap is also being made. I want to understand from you, is this really going to be enough?
See, cleaner balance sheets, as I said, very low NPAs now. The credit growth is, despite the pandemic, you're growing at close to 6.23% as far as the PSBs are concerned as of December. Thirdly, the restructuring, this resolution circular of RBI also is going to take care of about 1 lakh crore worth of assets, which they have already, invocation has happened, so they will be resolved. Then raising money from the market. So all this put together